From the ocean to across the bay, it's our direct connection to policy and politics in Annapolis. Time for a conversation with Maryland Governor Larry Hogan here on the Talk of Delmarva, 92.7 WGMD, WGMD.com, and the WGMD app.
And live from Ocean City this morning, the governor joining us on the Newsmaker line. Governor, good morning. Welcome back to WGMD.
Good morning, Mike. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I guess a week ago at the Firemen's Convention to Mayor Meehan, and I know Senator Carosa said this, that Ocean City's not your second home, it's just your other home.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to put it. I mean, I just love being in Ocean City, and I try to find as many excuses as I can to come down. And luckily, there are a lot of great conferences and things where they invite me to come speak, and I love to get that opportunity as much as I can.
Most certainly. Well, let's first talk about the Maryland Municipal League activities today, a schedule of events. Tell us what you'll be doing. And then if you can, I know you can't give away the speech, but if you could give us maybe a theme to what your speech is going to be about tonight at the dinner.
Sure. Yeah, well, it's just going to be a great day here in Ocean City, and I'm obviously starting off the day with you, which is a great way to start, meeting with our team, and then I've got a breakfast with Senate President Mike Miller to talk about some budget things, and we're going to go through the convention center and meet all the exhibitors and just interact with all of the local elected officials from around the state. And then we'll be doing a official grand opening of Bad Monkey in West Ocean City, and heading down to the boardwalk to do some things and stop by some local business owners and say hello to some folks. And then tonight we have the MML cocktail party and dinner, and we'll be installing the new president of the Maryland Municipal League, and the really local leaders from the towns and cities all across the state will be there. And I'm looking forward to just, number one, I think I'm just going to thank them for their incredible service. These folks really work hard, and they're the closest government to people, and really some very dedicated folks in these towns and communities we work together with very well. And I'll just talk about some of the priorities that we share, and talk about how we're going to continue to work together over the next 4 years to get things done for the people of Maryland.
I was very impressed at the setup that they have at the convention center there, and it'll be most certainly a good night, and be certainly good to have you, and I'll be there tonight, and getting some sound for news and all that, and good to get folks from all over the state, just like the Firemen's Convention last week, to all convene in one place, and no other perfect place, at least in my mind, than OC in the summertime.
I love it. I love coming to Ocean City, and as soon as I roll into town, I totally relax. And I'm used to coming down here for my entire life, to relax and be on vacation. But now I come, it's all work. But I still get a good feeling being here, and you still get to take a look at the water and, maybe sit out and watch the sunset and walk on the boardwalk a little bit. But we also have some business to take care of. No,
most certainly. I do have to ask, though, will you get an arcade game in or two, or some skee ball while you're on the boardwalk today?
It's very possible. I'm sure there may be some Thrasher's French fries and an ice cream cone involved.
Got to.
That's very possible. And, maybe I'll get on a ride or something. Last time I was in town, I raced all of my state troopers on go-karts. And, I beat all of them, so I just want the record to show that.
Nice.
So, it was really a lot of fun.
Oh, very good. A couple of other items. I know yesterday, by the way, just a quick announcement that state workers will have off July 5th. I'm just wondering if I can get that here at WGMD as well. That'd be nice.
You know what? I'd be willing to put a good word in for you, Mike. I think you deserve it as hard as you work.
I appreciate it. All right.
We gave the state employees a day off. It was a debate internally, and I would say I don't want to rat him out, but the budget secretary and his team were pushing against that idea because it really does cost the state a lot of money with 60,000 employees. But I just felt, as hard as they work, they deserve to have this day, and a lot of great family activities going on 4th of July weekend.
Sure,
and,
sure.
It's just, I think, giving them that one extra day to maybe come down to Ocean City and spend some money would be good.
Well, I was going to say, that means they'll be spending money in the economy, so I think that'll make up for at least some of that, most certainly. Yeah. On a serious note, with the latest from the Supreme Court, well, we haven't gotten a decision yet, but we're awaiting to hear from the Supreme Court the gerrymandering situation, although it's something that the state is working on as we speak right now. I guess it's just so tough because, and we know the 6th District is gerrymandered at the federal level, but the question is, okay, it's a subjective fix, I guess, to some extent. Where does the court come in on that, and how exactly do they remedy that situation, I guess, is what they battle with.
Yeah, well, so we're Thursday to try to finish up their work. Mm-hmm. So we believe we will have a decision this week in the gerrymandering case. We're still very hopeful that they'll make what we believe would be the right decision. And there's no question the previous governor admitted that he drew this district right. With the intent of getting another Democratic congressman, and that they gerrymandered. He flat out, testified before the court that that's what he did. It's a violation of federal law, and we need to do something about it. It's an issue that I feel very passionate about. Look, both parties are guilty of this. It happens in states across the country, and it's just wrong. I mean, I think we ought to have a system where the people pick their representatives, and instead of the other way around. We have too much politics involved in the drawing of these districts, and we've been fighting for 4 years in Maryland to push for nonpartisan redistricting, and unfortunately, our legislature, who controls all the power, has not even brought it up for a vote. But we're going to, I think, win at the Supreme Court. We'll get a good, fair 6th congressional district, and that'll just be the start, though, because we have the worst gerrymandered districts in America, and the 6th district is not even the worst one. It just happens to be the one in this case. But with the 2020 census, we're going to draw new congressional districts and new legislative districts, and it's going to be a battle over the course of the term of my term as governor.
Now, I'm just curious, the lower court, there's a lower court that's already ruled that's why you have a panel working on the 6th, but how does the Supreme Court decision affect what the panel's working on right now?
Well, it's a good question. So we've already completed and drawn a district. The independent commission has drawn a district. The court could decide to implement that district. They could remand it back to the lower court. In a couple of cases, they've said it's too late to implement for next year's 2020 election, and they push it off to the 2024 election. We just don't know what the Supreme Court's going to rule, but we're ready and prepared.
I see.
The timing is such that you don't have time to wait and then start a process.
Right.
So we have a fair district that was drawn by an independent redistricting commission that I believe that the judges in the courts would agree with and approve. So we're just waiting to see exactly what takes place, and we're hoping to hear that this week.
One of the topics of discussion last week on one of the programs, and ours as well, having to do with the Supreme Court decision on the Hes Cross over the Western Shore. Very happy to see that was preserved, and I'm glad to see they saw it. And a 7-2 decision, that's a strong one, as Congressman Harris pointed out. So there's really no question about that.
It really is, and we were extremely pleased with that. I've been fighting for that Hes Cross for many years now. It's something I felt very strongly about, that this is dedicated to World War I veterans who died. It was put up by the widows and children of those men, dedicated to their courage and their valor and their honor. And to say that we had to tear it down was just absurd. And I promised to fight it, and we pushed it. We took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and we won the case. And I think it was a tremendous victory, and I think people should be very happy that we're continuing to honor those veterans.
It's 8:54. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan joining us on the Newsmaker line. Governor, we talked about this last week with a RedMaryland.com segment, a Greg Klein, that the Kerwin panel that's making recommendations, that is, to the committee that was recently selected by, I believe, the House Speaker, the Senate President, it seems it's really stacked in favor of the spend, and spend more approach. There's no balance on there whatsoever.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's been my biggest concern about the entire process. The Kerwin Commission was set up by the legislature for really the primary reason was to come up with funding formulas and to discuss how to come up with the financing of our education improvements, and they didn't do any of that work. They came up with some really great ideas and lots of wonderful things that many of which we'd love to see at some point. But they passed no way for how to pay for it. No suggestions whatsoever about how we're going to come up with it. And the bill that passed through the legislature really creates over the next 5 years an $18.7 billion deficit. And so, I came in my first budget. We eliminated a $5.1 billion deficit that we inherited from the previous administration. This would put us in, more than 3 times worse position than when I got here. They're going to argue about raising taxes by $18 billion, which is not something that I or the Maryland taxpayers will stand for. It's going to be a big battle. I mean, we all agree in providing look, we have some of the best and most highly funded schools in America. I have record funded, put state funding into schools 5 years in a row. I pushed for and we enacted the lockbox initiative to make sure all the $4.4 billion of casino revenues goes into the schools. But this is another $18.7 billion that they want to put in, and I'm just not sure how in the heck they figure we can pay for that.
Yeah, and accountability is a real issue as well. Governors, we wrap things up just rapid fire here quick, and pardon the pun. The couple of the vetoes that came out while you were in Ocean City to kick off summer, vetoes of the repeal of the Handgun Appeal Board and then oyster sanctuaries. Talk to us about your thoughts on those quickly, and also how do you distinguish between vetoing legislation or just letting it sit and becoming law? Because obviously, in both cases, it seems as if you're not in favor of it, but a veto puts it on the record.
Right. Well, so on the handgun roster board, this is something that was created by the legislature. It's been in effect for 30-some years and worked very effectively. And this year they played politics and eliminated the board, which, basically, look, I'm a strong believer in the Second Amendment. I think that the law-abiding citizens ought to have a process where they can have the right to bear arms. I want to get tougher on making it harder for criminals and the mentally ill to get guns. And so this particular bill was not about stopping the shootings in Baltimore. They killed our legislation on getting tough on violent crimes and people that commit crimes with a gun. But they passed a bill to do away with the process to allow citizens to get those permits. So we vetoed that bill. On the oyster sanctuaries, we're very supportive of oyster sanctuaries. I have a plan, had all the stakeholders work for years to come up with a plan. They threw it all out the window and listened to one special interest group, and it was wrong, and we vetoed it, and it was the right thing to do. How we decide on whether to veto or not, it really is a tough call. Look, the legislature has 70% Democrats in both houses. So they can override every single veto. And so we can't, just waste everyone's time by vetoing hundreds of bills. But the ones that really matter, even if it's a tough fight, we have to stand up and do what we think is the right thing for the people of Maryland.
Just real quickly, I know we talked to you last time about the clean energy plan, which you had issues with what the Democrats have put forward. And you, on the one hand, doubled down, but also had some issues with what the Democrats were doing because you want to exceed their standards. So I'm just trying to, where's the balance there? And in terms of the cost to the taxpayer, I know that you're always looking out for the taxpayer there. What is the difference between your plan and what the Democrats have in place?
Well, so the plan that they came up with really would stick it to ratepayers and do nothing for Maryland jobs, and really wasn't a clean energy plan. So there were a lot of problems with it. Mm-hmm. Basically, again, it was special interest groups that were pushing an agenda. Wasn't very well thought out. They called it the Clean Energy Jobs Bill, but all the jobs were created out of the state of Maryland.
Right.
They didn't really take into account the impact on ratepayers at all. Look, I believe in pushing for more clean energy and having a more diverse energy policy, and we're going to come up with a plan that we think can do that without hurting the economy and without sticking it to the ratepayers and the taxpayers.
Yeah, and I know that weather stations being put up in July next month off of Ocean City as the wind farms. That's the first phase in getting the wind farms up, and there still seems to be a lot of cloudiness around what's going to happen and how many miles off coast those wind farms are going to go. And this weather station's being put up right before the White Marlin Open, which I know was a concern of the mayor.
It's a concern of mine as well, and unfortunately, there's not a whole heck of a lot we can do about it. So we opposed the windmills off the coast of Ocean City. Our administration was strongly opposed to them, but it happened anyway. The legislation, look, I'm for a diverse energy policy, and wind energy is certainly a part of that. But the fact that they were citing them too close to the coast and not taking into consideration the view sheds, so we're working to make sure that we can do everything at the federal level and the state level to push back and to make sure that this is done properly and to protect the view sheds as much as we can. And look, we want to create wind energy jobs. We want to have clean energy, but we also want to take into consideration all the other factors that are just as important.
Governor, thanks for all your time this morning. I will see you either midday today, but certainly tonight at the speech at MML's dinner. I appreciate your time this morning.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mike.